your story, recapping it briefly, where it is, where your lawsuit is, your co-author being exonerated. I know you're moving towards that. You've been exonerated with the whistleblowers, the previous studies, but this has got to really hurt the people that tried to destroy you, as just fate would have it, all this evidence pours out.
Well, Alex, I've been in this 20 years now, and that's feels like many, many lifetimes. But we listened to parents who said that my child was perfectly normal. I'm not anti-vaccine. I took my child to get vaccinated. When I did that, they got the MMR and they regressed into autism. And they also developed gastrointestinal symptoms. And as a physician interested in gastrointestinal disease, I recommended those children should get investigated for that. They were investigated by the world's leading pediatric gastroenterologist at the time, Professor Walker-Smith, who you've just mentioned, my co-author on the paper, and he found that they had an inflammatory bowel disease. We treated that disease. Not only did the bowel disease symptoms improve, but the behavioral and autistic symptoms improved. It was the beginning of a fascinating journey, but we had to investigate whether the parents were also right about whether the vaccine had precipitated in this. That's when the problem started. And so Murdoch's brought his team of journalists along, Brian Deere. They came up with this extraordinary story that we had involved ourselves in fraud and deception, that we had made it up, there was no ethical approval, all of this kind of thing, while at the same time holding back from the General Medical Council inquiry vital documents that showed there was indeed ethical approval for this study. He knew throughout the investigation and the proceedings that he had in his possession key documents. That was an obstruction of justice.
Have you ever physically been around this guy? If I was you, I bet you get angry.
I get angry, but, you know, it's not about me. It's not about me, Alex.
No, I know, but I mean, this guy's trying to cover up what's going on with children. He's a despicable character, in my opinion.
Yeah, one thing I cannot forgive him for is the damage done to the children, because now we are many, many years on, and because the bowel disease in the minds of many was synonymous with vaccine injury, that had to be declared a fraud as well.
Because people were getting such good results in slowing or reversing it, God forbid we get a treatment for this.
That's right, and the trouble is that all of those children did not get investigated because doctors were terrified of doing the right thing, terrified of looking after their patients properly, of treating these children.
That's right. Trying to destroy you was meant to scare everybody off before this got further investigated. But go back in, it turns out there have been some other studies that you didn't know about that had found similar things.
Yeah, now there have been studies from Canada, from the Far East, from here in America, confirming that beyond a doubt these children have a novel inflammatory bowel disease in many cases that is amenable to treatment. And the key is not to walk away from the fight, because if you walk away from the fight, other doctors are just going to have no yardstick by which to judge what they should do.
I know you have to be very careful in science, even going off other studies and things, because they'll take what you're saying out of context and claim, oh, he's saying this, oh, he's saying that. But when I have Dr. Blaylock on, who's a famous brain surgeon and, you know, wrote major papers on endocrines and on so many other things and excitotoxins, I mean, in the inserts, I'm no doctor, but I can sit here and read all the things that this does. I know I worked for a large animal vet for a year, a small animal vet for 3 years in high school, and they would tell people, don't vaccinate your pet every year. It's causing them to have convulsions. It's causing them to have allergies. It's causing them to have diarrhea. It's causing them to die. And so they've kind of got the laws changed now where they vaccinate every 3 to 4 years, and animals are doing a lot better, though the lobby's coming back trying to say every year now. So it's the same thing. So I was 15, 16 years old listening to Jess Adkins, the large animal vet in East Texas, you know, saying, you know, these vaccines have got some problems. So, I mean, I remember hearing about that. But if I read this insert for the MMR shot, Merck & Co., Inc., White House Station, New Jersey, when I sit here and I read this, it says diabetes, pancreatitis, Guillain-Barré. I mean, it says all these neurological disorders. It says it can kill you. I mean, it's just page after page in Bible paper. It's super thin, saying all the stuff it can do. Measles-like rashes. So, as best we can tell, what is it doing? It's causing an autoimmune thing, inflammation in the pancreas, in the intestines, in the brain. What's happening, doctor?
Well, just come back to the point you made. The vets were way ahead of the curve. The vets recognized these problems and dealt with them far, far sooner than medical professionals have. And they took the thimerosal, the mercury preservative, out of vaccines many years before it was even considered to be taken out of human vaccines, because they recognized that it was doing harm. And as you say, they spaced the vaccines out because they recognized the pets were being given too many vaccines too frequently. So if only we took a lead from the vets, we wouldn't necessarily be in the same position we are now. Now, how's it working? Well, I think there are many, many ways. And the trouble is, Alex, by the time we see these children, they are so sick and their systems are so deranged that it's very difficult to say what happened first. Tracing it back to the first thing that went wrong is very, very difficult. But certainly the immune system is very much disturbed. There is an autoimmune component. The body turns upon itself. And so I think it's in large part an immune-mediated disease that affects not just the brain, but the rest of the body systems as well in many cases.
So poison ivy is an autoimmune issue. AIDS is when your T lymphocytes are gone and you lose the programmer cells, I guess. I mean, as best, from all my years of researching the medical literature, it just seems like it's causing a serious autoimmune disorder. I've also seen a lot of reports linking Crohn's disease that's really expanding and growing and spreading to people that have been vaccinated.
Yeah, well, that's how we got into this initially, looking at measles vaccine and Crohn's disease. And we still don't know the answer on that, because these diseases are so complex. Causation is not simple.
But we know they're exploding right now.
We absolutely know that there are epidemics of these immune diseases which are seen in the most highly vaccinated populations of the world and are far less common in those children.
That's right.
Getting lower rates of vaccination.
We'll be right back with Dr. Andrew Wakefield. I'm Alex Jones.
Well, I think you've characterized it very well. This is a do-or-die moment. It's absolutely crucial in the history of this country and indeed the world of who prevails. Who do your children actually belong to? And if we do not get William Thompson before a congressional series of committees that unearth the precise nature and extent of the fraud at the CDC and how they...
That's the big whistleblower.
That is the big whistleblower. Then if we do not do that, and if we lose this battle, your children, you... will be owned by the pharmaceutical industry, and your children and your children's children.
Slavery.
And they are simply a marketplace for those companies. They are quantified in terms of vaccination for every birth in how much revenue they will generate for the pharmaceutical industry in a mandated program for which there is no real recourse to any kind of compensation or litigation if your children are harmed. So they want to take away your rights as to whether your children should be vaccinated or not, according to your decision. But if your child is harmed, and vaccines are, according to the Supreme Court, unavoidably unsafe, then you are left to pick up the pieces. And that is the system that we face. And at the end of it is a massive profit for the pharmaceutical industry. Now, the way to do this, Alex, is to get your congressman to support Bill Posey. And you must do this. It's no good sitting there. So we've made it easy for you. Go to the autismmediachannel.com, and on there are 30 pages of complaint that I have written with Dr. Brian Hooker, which characterize precisely the fraud committed by the CDC, based upon the documents provided to us by William Thompson, the whistleblower. And those documents must be put in the hands of your congressman so that they know exactly what happened, and then they can give Bill Posey his support in getting this to committee.
That's right. Highlight them, go to their offices or when they're back in your state and give it to them. Hold them by the hand and say, listen, kids are getting hurt. You read this fraud and get up off your butt. And
here's the thing. Those congressional, they're in recess next week. So they are coming back, many of them, to their district. You can go and meet them in your district. You don't have to travel to D.C., but you make sure that every congressman in this country is aware of exactly what's going on. Because at the moment, farmer lobbyists are scaling Capitol Hill like orcs storming Helm's Deep. It's a hideous sight. And even though... You can see their huge offensive. I mean, this is Battle of the Bulge. I mean, they're throwing everything they've got. And this is a matter between Congress and a congressional agency or a federal agency, the CDC. It shouldn't involve the farmer lobbyists at all. The congressman should have the chutzpah to say to them, this is none of your business. You may be indirectly affected by the outcome of this, but this is between us and a federal agency that has committed an alleged fraud. So get out of my office and wait for the result. Well, think about with government-run health care that's run by special interests and written by it, they can just make us buy whatever, quote, health products they want, including tainted vaccines. This is super high-tech slavery. I mean, this is over the top. Yeah, so please go to autismmediachannel.com, download those PDF documents, and get them in front of your representative. Do not hesitate. Next week, they will be back in district and they will be available to you. So make it happen, because if we lose this battle, we lose it for a very, very long time.
Elaborate on where's the lawsuit going, how your colleague, the co-author, super prestigious. I mean, I looked him up, like you said, one of the top, gastro experts in the UK or Europe. That's why they were so scared of you guys and had to shut you down, because you're smart, well-spoken, prestigious, getting results, helping people, had to be destroyed. But they failed. You came back like the Phoenix, and that's so exciting. So break down where that fight's going right now as well.
Certainly. Let me start with John Walker Smith. When the GMC rendered their opinion and had their decision and had us struck off the medical register in the UK, both Professor Walker Smith and I filed an appeal. And I did not get funded for my appeal. It would have cost me about £500,000, which I didn't have, to fight that appeal, so I had to withdraw mine.
Because they destroyed your livelihood.
That's right. His was funded, and he took it to the High Court. This was the first time it had ever been in front of a proper judiciary. The judge, Justice Mitting, destroyed the GMC, destroyed them. He essentially accused them of being incompetent, unable to handle evidence. They did not know how to. He accused them of being biased. They rejected evidence that was valid. They had no idea what they were doing. Yes, they did, actually, because they were doing it deliberately.
Well, they were setting you up.
They had been given their marching orders, and they were going to get a guilty verdict, whatever. And at the end of it, counsel on behalf of the GMC admitted, said, we're sorry, we know our mistakes were made, and we didn't handle this properly. And the judge said, it would be a shame if this were ever to happen again. You go away and you change your whole process of conducting these fitness to practice inquiries. So it was demolished. However, they got what they wanted, and that was taking my license away.
And now autism rates have gone, I mean, they vary. The highest are in South Korea, correct me if I'm wrong. It's like 1 in 30-something. It's 1 in 50-something here now. It was 1 in 68. It was 1 in 25,000 30 years ago. I mean, I can see the children when I'm at the grocery store or I'm out in public. Kids aren't looking too good. And the babies aren't, and I mean, you go to a movie theater, sometimes the thing is just full of autistic children, God bless their little hearts, babbling, and just going through hell. And I go to doctor's offices sometimes to, take my children to the pediatrician, and I'll be in there and there's like 15 kids and like 5 of them are autistic. I mean, this is an epidemic. Is it going to be 1 in 10, 1 in 5, 1 in 2? I mean, how long will this go? How many? I mean, does half the population have to be sitting in the corner in diapers, cussing when they're 15 years old, screaming at their parents before we do something?
I think the way to look at this, Alex, is look at the CDC's own numbers on this and look at the trend over time. It's now, what, as you say, around 1 in 50. If you extrapolate from that and you look at the risk for autism for a child born today, it's 1 in 25. And it's estimated that by 2025, it will be 1 in 2 children will have autism if nothing is done about it. And that is the situation now is completely unacceptable. But that will be a disaster. No economy in the world can sustain that kind of attrition of its population. So something has got to be done immediately.
Well, yeah, something was done. Have you read Eco Science, written by the current White House science czar?
I have not.
It's pretty interesting. They talk about social engineering through medical systems, water and vaccines to get people in line. It's pretty interesting. It was written by, they think there's too many people, Paul R. Ehrlich, Annie H. Ehrlich, and John P. Holdren. And this book is digitally online for free. They try to pull it down when people find it, because it's pretty shocking. This was basically adopted by UNESCO as a global shadow policy to carry out social engineering through medicine.
Right. Well, keep an eye on your copy, Alex. I might have to steal it before I go.
Well, you can borrow it. You're certainly welcome to.
Thank you. But, and the other issue is what happens? Okay, there are 2 elements to this. There's the epidemic that's occurring now, and then there are the children who are already damaged. What do we do about those children as they age out and they become adults? As you say, sitting in diapers at the age of 15, 20, 25, unable to cope, unable to deal with themselves. And we had a tragic case here in Austin the other day of a young man who was in a group home in the district, in the community, and a simple thing happened. I think someone stood on a DVD of his, he had a meltdown, he went running around the district, knocking on doors, and he was shot 4 times, shot to death. These people cannot cope in the community. They have no idea.
Yeah, it's scary when a 25-year-old autistic man's at your door, and we're sad he got shot. But I mean, and cops are shooting them all the time too, because you